And welcome back to Footy Focus. We're just looking at a bit of round 21 action there. And now we're joined by Jim Stynes from Melbourne. Hello, Jim.
How are you, Ian?
Good, and yourself?
I'm very well, thank you.
Now let's get straight down to business. There's been a plunge on you for the Brownlow. How's your form been this year, just so we know whether we should follow that plunge?
Well, no, we haven't won too many games this year, so...
Do you think it counts against you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that's like the year I won it. You know, we made the finals, and I played quite well in the games that we won. So it's winning Brownlows is a lot of things have got to go in your favour. Not only have you got to be playing well, but you got to be playing well the days you win, not the days you're losing. So like even last year with Kelly winning it, the Swans, they didn't have a terrific year, but he played well and he polled well in the games that they won. It made a big difference.
So how have you gone in the games that Melbourne's won this year, Jim? We mark you down for 4 threes.
That's not going to win a Brownlow, Ian.
Well, it's a good start.
You went very well the other week against Carlton, which was probably the best win for the year for Melbourne.
Yeah, that was terrific. Yeah.
How did you find Matthew Allen? That didn't play Justin in that game, who you've had some great battles with. Were you surprised with that? How did Matthew Allen go?
Yeah, Allen's he's a young player, and he's got a terrific future, I believe. And playing in the ruck, like he's been thrown in there, but he's had a good grounding, trying to get that position. Like when I came in with Steve O'Dwyer, and there was always that rivalry, and it's healthy to have that there, particularly with ruckman, because you can tend to try to understand the game, and with different types of players you're playing on, you do need to have a bit of fire in your belly, because you can get it easy if you're the only ruckman. You can tend to be played for the sake of being played, and often I think, Ron, you might have had that position when you were up at the Swans for a while. There was players that you were playing in the ruck because you didn't have anyone else. So for some of the younger players, they do need to have that, and I think Matthew Allen will be a good player. But on that particular day, Justin Madden's been tough for me because of his height and centre bounces. Like he's just so hard to beat because he's so tall. And
Jim, it's been an extraordinary career, because we all know how you came from Ireland and you won a Brownlow medal. And as well, the other extraordinary thing was this year breaking the record for the most number of consecutive games. You broke Jack Titus's record. Here's the banner on that day when you reached 205 in a row.
I couldn't even get through the banner.
Couldn't you?
I've hit the toughest part of it.
Here we go. Yeah, that's pulled you up. But along the way, you're aware of that record, obviously, for quite some time.
Yeah, well,
but again, it's not the sort of thing you chase personal records, but as it did get closer, you must have thought, well, it will be good to break it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And particularly, the media doesn't let you forget about it. Every week they're reminding you of what you're doing and where you're playing. And
the Footy records seem to forget it. They didn't put you on the cover when you broke it.
Yeah, well, it didn't really matter. It was the fact is that it happened, and it was a great day. And it's one of those memories that I'll take away from the game and hold pretty close.
Jimmy, the Irish experiment, one could say it has been a success, a surprise to a lot of people, but it's seemed to have died a natural death. Do you think it'll ever be used again?
Well, there's a few rumours going around that they're looking at it again, and they're going to try and relax some of the rules, because really they've got to change. You've got to have a concession. Like if you take a kid from Ireland, you should be able to put him on your maybe sub list, and then you can get first choice of picking him up rather than another club. So, it's not fair, particularly with 42 on the list. Like you see Melbourne this year, like last week we picked a team from 23 players that were available out of 42. Well, anyone could have got, and in our reserves, like you've got 2/3 of the team that don't even know each other. So, things have got to change, and to bring extra guys in who are not ready to play that level, particularly, and only maybe just good enough to get into a reserves team.
And what's your theory as to why the Melbourne Football Club was the most successful club with the Irish experiment?
That would have to be yourself, Ronnie.
No, I didn't ask for that reason, because it did continue after I left and all that, and there were St Kilda players at St Kilda and Geelong and Carlton.
Yeah.
So is it just a coincidence that it happened to be Melbourne to have the 3 players? Although St Kilda had one guy who played a few Dermot.
Yeah, Dermot Nicol, which he'd, I suppose, proved himself as a footballer, and he was a senior footballer.
3 or 4, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he played against the Australian team in the composite rules. I just think when Melbourne went into it, they went into it with long-term vision about it. Well, look, let's make this happen. Like you guys went over there in 82, again 83, 84, 85, 86. So there was some continuity about it, and also the club were geared up for, well, let's try and make this happen. And unfortunately, too many people left who were involved in, like yourself, Slug, Barry, Dick said, and it all gone, and so it was left with John Nordy and his team. And John was great because he had Sean White and myself playing, and we'd come through a pretty successful era. But I don't think the next level of coaches, I don't think they really supported, and they felt that they couldn't recruit better interstate or out in the country or whatever. So that side of it died, and then of course trying to get your visas and the college fees and all that was just getting too difficult. And I know with Anthony Toll, who's now in the top 10 players in Ireland, it was costing the club $30,000 to put him to school and to give him board. Well, about 6-7 years ago, you were paying senior players that sort of money, and he was only a 19-year-old kid, so it became a little bit difficult.
Can I ask you a question just quickly on this, Ron, before we look at this game? When you first saw Jim, did you actually go to Ireland and see him running around over there?
Yeah, Jim was part of a training camp that Melbourne put on in Dublin.
Can you recall the first time you set eyes on him?
I think it was Barry Ritson who said, this big kid's, have a look at this big kid, because, there were about 30-odd players at this thing, but early in the piece, Bones Ritson.
What did you think, though, when you first saw Jim running around?
Well, I thought he might be a bit too tall, because we had this sort of a person in mind. We didn't want to go too small or too big. Was on the basis that the taller you are, the harder it is to learn something new at a young age. And that even happens in Aussie rules with Australians, let alone guys from another code. But he impressed so much, we thought, no, we'll take a bit of a punt here. I think we rang back the slug and just sussed out his opinion again.
Was Jack O'Shea, because obviously you had a tremendous respect for Jack O'Shea, was he a sort of person, that sort of mould that you were looking for, someone who was sort of fluent, about 6'2" mark?
Yeah, about 6. Well, a 6'2" has got everything. He can do it in the air if he's good, and he can do it on the ground if he's good. So if you're taking a risk like that, why go for a small guy who's only limited to small man play, or big man who's only limited to big man play? So that's why we're looking for the guy 6'2". But you came through, Jimmy.
Yeah, I was going to say, just as well he didn't grow any taller. Ron was too tall, don't want him.
Well, I was only about 6'4.5" then, so I grew another inch and a half like an idiot.
Has it created any impact for Australian rules back in Ireland?
It did for a while, because it was getting coverage, and it was every week, and Channel 4 and Sky and RT took it on, and there was a period there where I'd come home and people would know, oh yeah, I saw quite a few of your games or whatever, people would write, but then RT sort of died, and it died here, and the TV rights changed, and then they started to get very little. And so the whole thing, well, it had a lot of momentum, and then the composite rules games were on. It was prime time, and then teams were playing in London and so on, and it was the right time to sort of take that next step with it, but then it sort of died a bit.